So moving on, Allison, because you're next.
Yes.
And I think it's a perfect segue because Lake Mungo, it was really the first time I sat down to watch the film in its entirety. I thought it was excellent. And talking about that realism, that looks like a authentic found footage / documentary.
Adam told me about this movie. You recommended this to me years ago because of my love of true crime. I love true crime. I mean, I don't even know how to. I listen to Dateline or 48 Hours or 2020 or Snapped, Women Who Murder.
That came on in the car.
Yes,
when
it
we
did.
got on in the car. Like her phone just connected via
Yes.
Bluetooth and it just brought up like
you're
someone
Guilty.
talking about murder.
Guilty pleasure.
Yes, yes, it was a really good episode. I listen to one of those podcasts every night when I'm going to bed. I don't know what it says about me because frequently true crime is about like violence against women. So I've gotta dig into that a little bit. I just love true crime. The realer, the better. I am invested. I like it more than I like Law and Order.
I was just going to
SVU.
ask you about that. Yeah.
I like it. I enjoy it. It's like every actor, New York actor's dream to be on Law and Order. It's amazing. I love it. But I much prefer Dateline or 2020 or something that really happened to someone. So Adam, said, you really got to see this movie, Lake Mungo. And I said, did it really happen? He's like, well, you have to just give it a watch. And I love this film. It's really the story of a family dealing with grief. A young girl, she's 16. She drowns in a lake, and the rest of the movie really becomes about dealing with that, and really the existential horror of that. So this isn't a James Wan movie. This isn't The Conjuring. This isn't no jump scares. This isn't The Shining. Even though there's some weird, I would argue there's existential dread in The Shining for sure. But this is a movie that's really as much about grieving and loss and about how we really can't ever have closure when someone dies, as it is about being scary, per se. I think the creepy scenes are very creepy, especially the finding the footage of Alice, like in the backyard, or finding the footage in that is very scary and gave me the the heebie-jeebies. Obviously the big jump scare, if there is one, is at the very end, when she sees the bloated corpse of herself, which is an omen of her death. I just think it's a really, really well acted film too. This is funny because I'm about to make a point about people using and I just did that. I find that something I struggle with sometimes in found footage films is there's a sort of like forced naturalism a little bit. There are a lot of but I'm disproving my own point as I say and sort of. So I'm going to so as I was watching it, rewatching it, I was thinking, there are a lot of like pauses here. There are a lot of
It's because the true crime documentaries you watch
Yeah.
are so
They're
coached,
so coached.
and they're so edited.
Yes. I'm sure
that
they
they
say-
take all of that out. So
Yes.
although this is true crime, I think it might not feel like it to you as a true crime fan.
Yes, I think so. They have to be coached because there are no, everything that people are saying in true crime documentaries, I think, is coached. I think they're told to take out the take
Very
out the sort of, take out the, So as I was watching it, I was thinking, oh wow, there are a lot of like naturalistic pauses here. I'm not sure if I love it, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the film. I got off on a tangent there.
No, but I like that because I do that all the time. So when I edit the show here, I'll look and I'll say, I say this a lot. That's interesting. So we all have crutch words. So, I mean, so is another one in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I agree with that. With the acting style, sometimes it feels like not acting, you're acting in a weird sort, like a paradoxical way. And if you're trained as an actor, sometimes it can be a bit annoying because it just looks like, well, this person's just acting natural, but you should have some sort of presence and dynamicism, you know. So I understand that part. There we go. That would be the title of the show, everyone. It's
I don't believe this video anymore.
We're just going to keep saying and so.
And sort of. And,
or if you're from the Bronx, you say, to tell you the truth. That's a New York City one.
It's true. It's true.
Tatiana, did you see Lake Mungo? And
Yes, I did. There I go.
now we're gonna
That's not natural. Of course, natural.
This is my acting today. You know what it brings to mind for me when we're talking about this is, whoops. When you, I think now it's really hard to distinguish what's real and what's not on the internet, especially. And so there's a lot of people making these videos on TikTok or Instagram, and you're like, haha, that naturally happened. They just walked up to that man and asked that crazy question, and that was his response. Or like, her dad did that. That's so crazy. And then you're like, wait, did they just film this to get a lot of views for their content?
Yeah.
And so I think you just don't know anymore. Like the whole line between acting and realism, and I love that that movie explores that, and found footage in general explores that for us.
That was such a great point, Tatiana, saying about, because I always wonder now when you watch on YouTube, there's these amazing things happening, and you're saying, what's the odds of this person having their cell phone on when this happened? So you're right. Even today, people are being tricked and think, oh, this was natural, but a lot of it was staged. And not to bring up, this is the last thing, the Haktua girl, but that was all staged too.
Wait, what?
That was all staged. So
Wait, it was?
those people, that's so if they found out those people,
there will be a true crime documentary about it soon, and then you can catch up.
This is news the movie. That's true. So they, the gentleman that interviewed her, they already set that up with her. So they were already in cahoots. So him asking those questions, they already had an idea that they were going to do something that was quote unquote memorable and viral. Like, you know, they wanted to make that viral moment, and they lucked out, and they did do that. But it was planned. There was a lot of talk about that because they wanted credit for that too, because she just rocketed up. And
I did not know that. This is news. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. I had no idea.
I feel like we're breaking news right now. Watch, I get like a cease and desist or something. They say that it wasn't. So I don't have any money, so there's nothing you can get. Your new Bitcoin.
This is all found footage. It's fake. None of this is real. Yeah.
I hate to say, but she's already in trouble with that the crypto scam. So this will be the least of her problems. So, but yeah, we don't know what's real and what's not. And again, that's another appeal. You know, another thing that's really cool about found footage.
Yeah. And in this film specifically, exactly. I mean, I like that it's not, you know, it doesn't have a lot of scares, as you said. It really spaces them out. And when it finally introduces these images of the ghost, then you find out they're not real either. This is part of the hoax. This is part of the grieving process they're going through.
That almost scared me too. Like actually the concept of the brother doing that and making that footage was scary to me.
I just used an old video of Alice, and I played that on the TV.
Absolutely.
And like just taking the time and the effort, and then like, you know, putting in those convincing clips, like in that clever way. Like, what did he say? He was filming footage of her, and it was in a mirror.
I had the TV up on the bookcase, and it was as simple as rotating the mirror.
So it seemed like she was there.
Yes.
Yeah, there is something creepy about this setup.
It's
super
creepy. And I was watching it late at night.
Played it through a television, put it in a mirror.
Yeah,
that's
it's kind of creepy to watch late at night if you're alone. Like it still scares you.
Yeah. I agree.
It's like your deceased sibling, and you're doing something like that to trick your
Yeah,
parents,
it's
even though
disturbing.
the parents like didn't want to. He was going to coerce it by doing that action. That's really creepy, and that says a lot, because let's say if somebody did unalive her, I would imagine that he might be a suspect for doing something that's sketchy.
So sketchy.
That's true.
Sus, as my son
Sus.
says. He's sus, man. He's sus.
I forget. Does he explain? And I'm trying to think as we're talking. Does he explain why he did that? Do you remember?
I think he's trying to help the mother.
He thought he was giving her
through
comfort.
her grieving process.
Oh,
There was a reason. Yeah, there was a reason. I forget myself, but
Yeah, I think.
I think he said it was like to comfort her, and then
that's
somebody
right.
asked him to reflect, like, were you really providing comfort? And he's like, I guess not. I guess I made it worse.
That's
I feel
right.
bad.
That's right.
That's right, because the father identified the body. The mother refused to see it, and
Yeah.
he thought if he could force the exhumation and
Yes.
force her to see it, then she would be able to find closure, which is really interesting. It's a really interesting film about the coping mechanisms we use to grieve and how inherently flawed all of them are, which I think is. I mean, it presents two of them that are completely contradictory, right? On one hand, you have these people who are desperate for closure, and they want to close the book on a person's life and say that definitively this is the end and that's how we'll move on. And on the other hand, what they're trying to do is to say, well, this person actually didn't die. They went on to a better place, and then they're going to be with me in perpetuity until I die, and then I'll see them again. So definitively, this is not the end. So you have these two competing mechanisms that we use to work through our grieving process, because both of them are inherently faulty. You're never ultimately going to have closure, because by nature, inherently a person's life and our relationship with them is too complex, and you're never going to be able to prove that there's an afterlife. That's faith-based, and again, just something we can't prove. Neither one of those is going to work in its entirety. So we sort of have these two things together that compete against each other, and those are the best mechanisms we have to cope with grieving. It's really it's difficult. Maybe that's what makes it a sad film. Sorry, it's me going off on a tangent.
But it's true. I think you hit it right on the head in regards to how people grieve, and sometimes people need that for closure. Just going on that trip and finding her cell phone and finding all those things and finding out some other unfortunate stuff, they were able to identify and connect with her. And by doing that, they were able to... You're always going to grieve, I imagine, in that situation. But there is some sort of closure. I guess as much closure as you can get in that type of situation.
Right.
It actually made me think, one of my good friends once said to me, closure is an illusion. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to think about, just in life in general, not even in death, but in like a breakup, in the end of a friendship, in the end of a job. Like, what exactly is closure? And because you can always think about the what ifs and not feel content.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just interesting to think about the idea of closure, and I love that theme in the, in the movie.
100%. And I mean, if you think about it in terms of this film, closure is an illusion. It's a ghost that he embedded into an image to help his mother find closure, because this is something that otherwise will haunt them. I think that's really poignant. Yeah, I think you're right.